Hello, viewers. We are going to discuss the most important and significant topic, that is the Women Reservation Bill. What is the implications, why it is the more relevant, and the last 1 and 2 months, if you look at the newspapers and the media, the government of India's parliament, the focusing on the women's in the parliament, Women's Reservations Bill, or simply say the quota bills. Why it is important today? Why after the 75 years of the independence, India needs reservations to the women's. If we look at the women's representations and the participations, that is matter for any democracy. In that way, this bill is important or milestone for political participations and representation of the women's, or in other words, we can say the Adhi Abadi. This Reservations Bill to 2023, also termed as the Nari Shakti Bandhan Adhiniyam, was introduced in Parliament in September, in the last month, 23. If we look at the words of Abraham Lincoln, the government, the people, by the people, and for the people. In the democracy system, which government elected by all sections of the societies. Yes, women is the part of our society where the representations and political participations. The women's in politics, that's matter for democracy. If we look at the democracy, whatever the terms is there, participations of each and every citizens must ensure the dynamics and other component of vibrant democracy. We know India is a parliamentary democracy where representations matters. In the Indian context, women empowerment, women in the decision-making process, especially in the parliaments, matter for gender-sensitive society. It is the good things. India is already represented by the women's leadership, especially the prime ministers led by the Indira Gandhi, and many present. The president of India is the women. So it is the good for the Indian society, but it is not. But second side of the story, we need more representations. India's had underrepresentations, especially different sections of the society, especially the women sections. So this bill may help the political empowerment of the women in the society. If we look at the Indian constitutions, the political freedoms, our constitutions ensure the political representations of all sections of the society. There is no any segregations, there is no any discriminations. It is clearly mentioned, we the people. People means the all sections of the society, all the citizens of this country in the civilized society. If we look at the quote unquote of the Dr. Ambedkar, he said, I measure the progress of community with the degree of progress of women has achieved. That means any society determined by the progress of the women in the particular society. There is no progress of women in terms of political, economic, cultural, or whatever the things, all section, sphere of the life. So that's why Ambedkar's quote unquote say, I measure the progress of the society or community with the degree of progress of women have achieved. Another thinker, she quote, full democracy requires the full participation of women. Your voices are vital. The word vital means the necessity for life. A democracy to be fully alive must include all its achievements. It is the dynamics of democracy. What will be the way, the path for the progress, where participation of the women is matter for democracy. If we look at the remarkable achievements of Hillary Clinton, former First Lady of United States, and also was later external minister, like the foreign minister of India, like the foreign minister of US, she was external minister of United States. She quote unquote say, she already contested presidential election of the United States. The when women participate in politics, the effects ripple out across society. Women are the world's most underused resources. Quote unquote, she remarks underused resources for the like the manpower's role in society. So role of women is very significant for any progress in the society. One can consider whatever the former prime ministers of this country, the first women prime minister of this country, the Indian democracy, to be liberated, women must feel free to herself, not in rivalry to the man, but in the context of her own capacity and her personality. There should be no conflict with the man society. The progress of the women must achieved as per her choice, her freedoms, liberty and equality. So whatever the political equality matter in democracy. That's why Indira Gandhi quoted or remarked that must be feel free in the society for their progress. There should be no competition with the men. It is your own trajectory for the progress. She also quoted, my father was a statesman. I am a political woman. My father was a saint. I am not. These sentences explain many things about the perceptions, approach of Indian society, especially women's position in the democracy or parliament on Indian society. That's why, yes, I am a political woman. I am working for the interest of this nation, interest of the women in the society. Recently, this government passed women reservation bill. Why reservations need the women? It is for the political participation. There is a lot of questions in democracy. Our constitution ensures political equality. Everybody has a right to cast her or his vote without any discriminations, without any gender, religions, as a citizen of this country. So our constitution already ensures. But whatever the target we unable to achieve, the political representations from the different section of the society, especially the women's. So that's why it is the new kinds of the substantive representations in the democracy. We can say we need the political participation, engagement, the political parties, interest group, civil society, the promotion of the women for the leadership in democracy. Whatever the demand of the reservations, the women's quota, recently the government trying to move towards for the equal representations. So that's why this bill is important for women of our society. After the passing of this bill in the Lok Sabha and the Raj Sabha, the Prime Minister celebrates with the women of Parliament as well as different section of the society. Women also celebrating this is the milestone for their progress, the new measurement of the women's progress in Indian society or Indian democracy, the political participations in democracy, especially parliamentary democracy. This picture itself shows the expressions, the feelings, the women's, parliamentary women's after the passing of this reservation bill. But there is some clause is there. The second side of the story, the women's are in the queue, the casting vote. But second struggle is here how to participate in the decision-making process. That's matter to make Indian Parliament more gender sensitive for achieving gender perspective of political participations. Equality, liberty, and the justice, especially the social justice with the women's in our democracy. So, after the passing the bill from the both houses of the parliament, it is the president, she also signed Nari Shakti Bandhan Adhiniyam to become an act. It is the president, lady president of India, signed this bill as an act of for promotion of women in the society, especially the political participations, the role of women in the Indian Parliament. That's why it's matter for liberations, the women's movement, women's active participation in the political spheres, indicators of affections of growth of democracy in any country. We can say the breaking cycles of the gender inequality, moving towards the prosperous and healthy nations. For the gender equality, it is one of the milestones to achieve the targets in our country. For the political empowerment, political representations, decision-making process, 21st September, it is the historic day for the Indian democracy, where Indian Parliament passed these legislations. The bill, both houses of the Parliament, almost majority, almost all members of the Parliament supported this bill. President also given her assent to provide 33% reservation of women in the Lok Sabha and State Assembly. Some of the provinces or state of India, they already allocations for the 33% reservations in local body elections. This bill is introduced as the Constitution of 120th Amendment Bill in the Lok Sabha, which will be known as the Constitution's 106 Amendment Act. So that's why this bill important for women empowerment of the different section of the society of Indian democracy. If you look at the historical background of this bill, when he started, I said earlier, it is Dr. Ambedkar, who advocates for the equal participation, the political participations for women in the Indian democracy through the constitutional. Earlier it was the Gandhi who led the movement. It was the Raja Ram Mohan Rai, the abolition of Sati Pratha, many more thinkers, the leaders, Vivekanand, they promoted the women empowerment in Indian society. The first debate was the Constituent Assembly debates. Issue come up with the rejected the ground that democracy would accord equal representations to all groups of the peoples. The participation was there, the Constituent Assembly during the formation of the Indian constitutions. In 1971, during the time of Indira Gandhi, Committee for Status of Women in India also established, talked about the declining women representation in Indian politics. So that time was the first step towards the political participations, the gender justice in Indian society. After the post-90s, we can say 73rd and 74th Amendment, the government passed the mandatory to the reserve 1/3 of the seat for panchayat and urban local bodies. That's why many states like the Kerala, Maharashtra, Bihar, Andhra Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand provide legal provisions to ensure 50% reservation for women in the local bodies elections for the political representations with you. If you go through the trajectory of the women's empowerment, what kind of the amendment, the law, the efforts, the initiative by the parliamentarians in Indian democracy, in 1996, the first Women Reservation Bill was introduced in the parliament. In that process, 98-2003, the government tabled the bill on the 4 occasions but failed due to there is no majority in the parliament, either Lok Sabha or Raj Sabha. There is some of the technical issues about the social justice and many more things is there. 2009, government tables the bill amid protest. 2010, Union Cabinet passed the bill. RS passed. Raj Sabha also passed, but it was not become the act. 2014, the bill was expected to table in Lok Sabha, but not. But it is the 23 where this government has majority in the Raj Sabha as well as the Lok Sabha, but all the opposition party unanimously support the government positions to this Women Reservation Bill for the empowerment of women, for the political participations and political representations in Indian society. If you look at what is the objective of this bill or any reservations bills not in the India, look at any democracy, United States to the France, to the African nations. The first is the participation, and accountability, transparency, responsiveness, inclusiveness, equality, and upholding the rights. Whatever rights, it is the political rights, social rights, that is the establishment of healthy democracy. It is important to accountability for all sections of the society. That's why reservation is important for representations, or we can say the social justice in Indian democracy or Indian society. If you look at another dynamics, the women in politics, whatever the political spheres, from housewife to the parliament, that's matter for discussions, especially the Indian society. That traditionally we know many more stereotype thinking is there, many leaders, many more the thinkers, or especially the common man, they think they limits the role of women in the society. So if the women in the politics, what is the benefits? We look at the political participation, benefits, obstacles, minimum conditions, national framework. What kind of national framework? It is the recent passed bill is the national framework, impact of the women's participations. Yes, no doubt, there is a lot of changes, dynamics, transformation in the society after the equal representation of the women in Indian democracy. It is believed that higher representation of the women in the parliament will ensure the women's issues are discussed more effectively. Even today, women in India lag behind men in various aspects. Yes, it is the true facts of the reflection of the Indian society. Yeah, there is some equality. If you look at the Bollywood, there is another kind of reflection of the women's participations, especially the Bollywood movies. According to Global Gender Gap 23, India ranks 127 of index of the 146 today. It is not good for achievements. Somebody asking what kind of the barriers for the women and the men to enter in the politics, especially the women's domestic cultural attitudes, especially I said what about the Indian societies, lack of family support, lack of confidence. Yes, there is no family support, there is no finance, there is no independent personality, the emergence of the independent personality in the democracy, especially the family and the society. Lack of electoral support, lack of finance, lack of political parties. It is the duty of the political parties. They ensure organizational participation of the women for the gender equality. So, the Women Bill 23, why it is important today? It is really remarkable achievements, or we have to go beyond these steps for an ideal democracy, for the more substantive and more representations in the parliament, especially representation in the parliament focused on decision making process. If you look at the Constitution of India, put forward the basic principle of equality, all citizens before the law, irrespective of the caste, creed, gender. Article 14 and the 16 also highlighted this. There is no any discriminations, doesn't matter you belongs which gender, men or the female or whatever the things. But there is a cognizant of the institutionalizations inequalities existing in the Indian society. Constitutions provide the framework for the positive discriminations, Article 15, which become an instrument for affirmative actions. In the case of scheduled caste and the scheduled tribes, Article 15 oblique 4 is there for the substantive or we can say the positive discrimination in the society. Inter-Parliament Report 2019, African countries Rwanda, the first in the Assembly 61.3%, followed the Cuba 53.2%, South Asia, Nepal 36 spot, 32% representation of the women in the decision-making process, especially parliamentary life is there. But India's stand far behind the world ranking. That's why this bill is important for empowerment. Indira Gandhi say, let's not forget that India, the symbol of strength is a woman, the goddess Shakti. So another symbolizations, the empowerment, the motivations for the women's. Let's not forget that India, the symbol of strength. Whatever I say, the Bharat Mata and the worship of the goddess, symbol of strength is the women, the goddess Shakti. Indian parliamentarians celebrated after the passing of this bill with the prime ministers. That's why this bill is important for empowerment. 1/3 seat, but it is not immediate effect. It will take time for facing the practical challenges. Also seat reserved for SC and ST, especially scheduled castes and scheduled tribes in Lok Sabha and the State Assembly. But there is some arguments against the bill. It is not the perfect bill. If you look at the reference of the social justice and the other Mandal Commission reports and if you consider the many more sectoral approach of the empowerment of women's, we say this bill shall come in effect after the exercise of delimitations is undertaken for the purpose after the relevant figures for the first census. Commencement of the bill in about more than after the 6 years or the 5 years. It does not specify the cycle of elections from the which women will be get their due share. So this is the question, important question for this bill. Second, we say this bill does not provide the women's reservation in the Rajya Sabha and State Legislative Council. The second demerit of this bill. Rajya Sabha currently lower representation of the women than the Lok Sabha. That's why government must correct this bill for more participations, substantive participations. There are a lot of recommendations by many academicians, policymakers to how to promote the women's active participations in there. So debate goes beyond the need of the mechanisms for the make legislation exclusive in terms of the women from especially marginalized groups and the communities. We say the principle of democracy to the society, tremendous inequalities such as special protections spread of the peers through the barriers of inequality. That's most attainable goal is meaningless as a right that cannot be exercised. There should be considered the other aspects that's left in your bill. So it is not the perfect bill. Equality of opportunity is also important for this women reservation bill. In the finally we say, yes, this is the significant step moving towards promotions, equality of women in the society, but we need more corrections for the more achievements, more substantive representation of women in Indian democracy. Thank you.